Hello and welcome to the show that hits harder than Bill Mojny and has more bite than Luis Suarez at a buffet. This is the Gersnet Podcast. So Rangers pick up a convincing 3 points at home against Neil McCann's Dundee, with Kenny Miller brought back in from the cold in a surprising starting 11. We'll take a look back at all of the big talking points from a performance that wasn't perhaps as comfortable as the scoreline suggests. Also, this was yet another sellout Saturday at Ibrox, but notably there were a few empty seats dotted around the ground, which seemed to get worse as the game went on. We'll take a look at why sold out might still mean a few empty seats. And finally, we're getting the battle fever on as we turn our attention to this week's Scottish Cup showdown at Hampden, previewing a potentially massive Old Firm clash. My name's Ross Bennett, and I'll be your Gersnet host this week. And joining me on the pod, we tried to get the two Ronnies, but they haven't been returning my calls recently. So we've got the next best thing. We've got the two Davids, David Fraser and David Tomlinson. Now, David Tomlinson, to stop myself getting tied up in knots here, we've got two Davids. On the Gersnet forum, you go by the name Pete. Is it all right if we use Pete today?
Yeah, no problem. Everybody knows me as that anyway, so it wouldn't be any different to being on the forum.
Fantastic. Anyway, Pete, how's your week been?
Great. Well, I really hate to say it, but we've been basking in the sun here for about 3 days. When I seen the weather at Ibrox, everybody complaining about the rain, I thought, I really feel a bit guilty here. So yeah, I even had a barbecue today before I started. So I really feel a wee bit ashamed in saying that.
Certainly not be barbecue weather down here in London. David, how are you doing?
Not too bad, thanks, Ross.
Excellent. Right, now before we go on, it would be wrong of us to ignore the incredibly sad news that's come out this week. On last week's pod, you might remember that we mentioned Ray Wilkins, who'd suffered a heart attack and was fighting for his life in hospital. Tragically, during the week, Ray lost that fight and he's passed away at the age of 61, which has deeply saddened the entire football community. Ray spent 2 seasons at Ibrox and will be fondly remembered for a sensational goal against Celtic, as well as a never-say-die attitude that endeared him to the Ibrox faithful. Ray Wilkins also spent many years playing down south and out on the continent and won numerous caps for England. This weekend we've seen touching tributes taking place at matches all over Europe, showing how respected he was as a player, as a coach and as a man. The thoughts of everyone at Gersnet go out to his family at this very, very difficult time. So with that in mind, let's crack on with the show. Obviously, the main talking point this week was a convincing result against Dundee at home, picking up 3 points, a 4-0 win. Although there were some contentious issues before the game even kicked off with what might be described as a slightly surprising starting 11. Obviously, Josh Windass picked up a knock last time out and there was a void to be filled there. We knew from Graham Murty's pre-match press conference that Windass wasn't going to make the game. So there was a space to be taken. A lot of people might have suggested that Jason Cummings maybe he's bided his time enough and would be ready to drop into the starting 11, but instead Kenny Miller took his place back in the side after a long absence. Pete, were you surprised by the starting lineup this week?
Yeah, well, I was very surprised because I was really expecting Cummings to come in, and really if you're not going to play him, then yeah, I'd actually be surprised if he's here for next season, because this was, you thought Windass out, the natural pick would have then been Cummings, but yeah, and Miller scored, so I suppose that he brought what Murty wanted him to bring. But yeah, was he that great? Because we ended up with 2 men in the midfield, the central midfield, with two players wide, and they were just getting run over all the time, in my vision anyway.
Yeah, no, I do understand what you mean. It was definitely a surprise to see him coming back in. David, what are your thoughts? Do you think he deserved a return to this side?
Kenny Miller? Difficult to say, Ross. I disagree with Pete. I wasn't surprised by Graham Murty not altering his formation. And Kenny Miller, I would say, is probably more suited to the number 10 type role that Graham sees Josh Windass playing in. So Yeah, Kenny Miller's an experienced player. I think with one eye on the cup semi, I think he thought he was always going to play him from the start yesterday.
Yeah, I'll take your point about Miller being an experienced guy, especially in that number 10 role. Sometimes, though, it seems that he can't be contained to a single position, and it's as if Murty's kind of given him free rein to wander wherever he likes. And we saw that again a little bit yesterday, perhaps not as badly as it's been in previous matches, but Pete makes a good point. Maybe he was kind of vindicated and justified in making that selection when Kenny Miller scored what was a really nice, well-taken goal. But looking at the performance more generally, obviously it was a 4-0 win, which seems really comfortable on paper. But, you know, for us that watched the game, there were periods of that game when it was anything but comfortable. Pete, what did you make of the performance?
Well, poor. Especially, up to about the 60th minute was very poor anyway. We started, as I say, we started a 4-4-1-1 sort of a setup with Miller. I take it he was supposed to drop deeper. And as I just said, the two people wide, Candeas and Murphy staying wide. We had two men in central midfield virtually. And Dundee started with a 3-5-2. So they had 5 men, so they had 3 central midfield players. And yeah, Docherty and Dorrans, they just couldn't cover the ground to keep up with the 3 men in midfield. And I think that's why we lost the control of the midfield really for long periods of the first half.
But then maybe that's the reason that he's decided to bring Miller in instead of Cummings, is that he knows Miller would probably be slightly more effective in a deeper position than Cummings could be or than Morelos would be. So, you know, we've seen Rangers sides under Graham Murray being dominated in the centre of the park. The first half against Motherwell last week is a prime example of us being outnumbered and outmuscled in the middle of the park. So, you know, maybe it was good forward planning from Murray to bring Kenny Miller in.
Yeah, well, I don't think it worked though, because we were getting overrun in the midfield. It was okay when we had the ball going forward, and I think we've got to thank Candeas for a lot, because he gave Miller a chance just before the goal, where Miller hit the post, and yeah, Murphy obviously coming in from wide left set up the goal. But every time we were in defence and in the defensive and Dundee had the ball, we were just getting run over. And Dundee were actually unlucky not to be a goal in front. If was it Musa you call him, didn't put the ball over the bar in the first half, then they could have quite easily been 1-0 up.
Yeah, that's right. Musa had a couple of really good chances and probably should have done better. And I think you got to give Dundee some credit that for that first hour of the game, they did play well. They had a game plan. They executed it nicely. David, Pete mentions there that the midfield were being overrun at periods of the game. Who impressed you yesterday?
I thought the general performance was a bit lacklustre. I don't think the formation does the two midfielders any favours whatsoever. I think in particular, Greg Docherty, he's, for a guy that's come in from Hamilton Accies, Graham Murty's asking a hell of a lot of the guy, especially with the type of role that he assigns to him in the team, whereby he's asked to do the dirty work, covering for players, tracking back and shutting down, because that's not really Graham Dorrans' game, given how slow he is. Looking at someone that put in a good performance yesterday, I think that you can say Daniel Candeas probably merited his man of the match performance, but I don't think that says a heck of a lot about the overall standard of the team. I don't think the performance was good at all from I think that most players could, with the exception of Candeas, could maybe be looking at a 5 or possibly a 6 out of 10. There was no real standouts for me.
You're a tough man to please. I thought they did what they have to do, especially in the second half. They got the job done. Neil McCann has changed that Dundee side around from what they were earlier in the season. Obviously, they got a good result against Celtic last week. I think they're a strong team, and we need to give them some credit and acknowledge that we were up against a team with good presence in the midfield. Musa had a decent game. He should have taken a couple more chances than he did. That Rory Deacon that they've got up front is he's meant to have a wee bit about him. So I think whilst it's fair to say that we were getting dominated a wee bit in the midfield, Greg Docherty probably did have his poorest game in a Rangers shirt, and that's probably because you're right to say, David, he's come in from Hamilton Accies and he's been asked to kind of carry the team at times. So I think to say they were 5s or 6s other than Daniel Candeias is perhaps a wee bit harsh. In the first half, probably not far off, but I think the standard definitely picked up towards the end of the game, certainly when Dundee had kind of run their legs out. But whilst we're on Daniel Candeias, I think he had a decent game yesterday, and he's been outstanding all season. Perhaps maybe three or four games in November, December time when he dipped a wee bit. But for a winger to come in from, he's been a wee bit of a journeyman. He's been knocking around various different leagues around Europe. To come in and have the impact that he's had this season, in his first season in Scotland, has been excellent. Pete, where do you think we would be without Daniel Candeias this season?
Well, I think he's had the most assists in the whole competition, so I think there would be a lot of goals less anyway than we've got. He got a goal yesterday as well, and Murty said in his interview that he told Candeias that he had to get into the centre more often, so as if a ball came from the left, that he would be at the back post for it. And I think that's the thing. If Murty did tell him that and he did get into the centres, then I think that's a good thing, and I think it'll help.
He definitely, he was our most creative player yesterday, and obviously Murty's acknowledged the fact that he needed to come into the centre more, and it paid off. Obviously, a huge talking point from the game yesterday was Alfredo Morelos picking up a yellow card. We've discussed the standard of refereeing. We discussed it last week on the pod. That in this country the standard of refereeing is poor, is left wanting sometimes. I've never quite seen a booking for a dive where the keeper is left on the floor with what seems to be a busted nose, blood streaming out of him, and yet the referee gives a booking because there was allegedly no contact. David, what are your views on that?
In real time, where I sit in the Govan front, it definitely looked like a Stonewall penalty kick. At the time, as you can imagine, everyone around me was irate and couldn't believe that the referee had given the decision he'd given, especially with booking Alfredo Morelos. Having kind of tried to digest everyone's irateness round about me, I was thinking to myself, why would the referee possibly give that, or possibly, book him? And I was thinking that maybe he was coming from the angle of he could have possibly been endangering his opponent, i.e. believing his knee in the goalkeeper. But having seen the replays of it since, and the confirmation that he's been booked for simulation, it beggars belief for us, to be perfectly frank. I think without getting into a big diatribe of the standard of refereeing in this country, it's yet another example of how inept refereeing is in the Premier League in Scotland.
Yeah, spot on. You're absolutely right. I mean, you're right to bring up the fact that maybe the referee could have flashed the card because the striker's left his leg in, looking for the foul, looking to be tripped up, so he's left a trailing leg there to be caught. But you see the speed that the boy's running at. I mean, Morelos is really going through the gears. There's no way that he's had any time to think about leaving a back leg leaving a trailing leg to be caught and taken down. So you're right, it's confirmed the booking's for simulation. The referee, in his haste to book Morelos, has had to run past the keeper lying on the floor in a pool of blood. He runs past that and sees it and still books the guy for a simulation because there was no contact. And that leaves Morelos facing a suspension. He's going to miss a game in 2 weeks' time, I think it is. So, Pete, how big a miss is that going to be?
Well, the way it's looking, or the possibility is it's going to be against Celtic. So, it would certainly be a big miss. And he's your top goal scorer. So we're going to be missing our top goal scorer against probably Celtic, which is a shame. I don't really know. Well, I suppose will Cummings come in? Will come in, and or Miller will get put up front. But yeah, I don't really have an awful lot of hope that they'll put in 3 or 4 goals. Miller, he can put in 1, maybe 2 at the most. But the way our defence is playing, I think we'll need more than 1 or 2. So, but yeah, he's going to be a big miss.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right, and it's kind of laughable that if Morelos is going to be missing for the game against Celtic in a few weeks' time after this is going to be Morelos missing against a club that actually released a film called Anyone But Celtic because they thought that referees were so against them. But there we go, that's fine. Obviously, yesterday was a good result for us, picking up 3 points at home. Home form this season's been shocking. But the result was probably even more significant because we've seen Hibs and Aberdeen both drop points yesterday. I think Aberdeen lost and Hibs had a really, really late equaliser against Ross County. So, David, what does this mean for us kind of going into the split and the last few games of the season?
If there's any confidence derived from the results yesterday, I think it'd be false dawn, to be perfectly honest, Ross. I'm very much of the opinion that going into the last 5 games of the season, a lot will hinge on the Cup semi next weekend. If, as I suspect, may well turn out to be the case that we don't progress to the final, I think if you thought the atmosphere and the lack of a full crowd yesterday was an indication of fan apathy, I think you'll see the gates dwindling even further for the last 5 games. On the playing front, if Rangers can get a result against Celtic in the Cup semi, then you can basically turn that assessment on its head, and I think that they could go on and rack up a good number of points in the final games of the season. Whether they can keep Aberdeen and Hibs at bay remains to be seen, obviously, but the split fixtures haven't been released yet, but it's looking like we'll need to go to Pittodrie again. Hibs may well need to come to Ibrox, but in the case of Hibs, I think given Neil Lennon's their manager, I think he definitely fires them up, and both managers, you could argue, especially Neil Lennon, they've got the measure of Graham Murty and his formation. I went to the game at Easter Road in December, and the result flattered Rangers. Hibs could have quite easily scored 4 goals that night, and it wouldn't have flattered them, given that the standard of defending in the first half in particular was pretty poor. In the second half, it was slightly better, and the last game at Ibrox, yet again, Hibs had the measure of Graham Murty. It's again, I hate to repeat myself, but it's largely down to Graham's formation and his unwillingness to deviate from it. He settled on this 4-2-3-1 formation, and he doesn't seem to want to alter it. Whether he alters that next week and going forward into the final league games, I don't know, but I guess that will reveal itself in good time.
Yeah, I think you're probably right saying that Neil Lennon has kind of sussed out what Graham Murty offers and what he can get the team to do. But where that's probably the opposite of that is with Derek McInnes, who he cannot buy a win against a decent club this season. He's not beaten us, he's not beaten Celtic, he's not beaten Hearts, and they took a real difficult performance for them yesterday against Hearts by all accounts. So I think yesterday actually the results could be really significant. Pete, what do you reckon about yesterday's results? Do they kind of tighten the grip on second place, or do you reckon that we could still be finishing as low down as 4th?
Well, yesterday's results certainly helped us. I think I still think we can. Hibs, we really got on top of them at the end of the game the last time. So while they dominated us at the start, we really get back into the game, and at the end up we were actually unlucky not to win. So I don't know. I don't think we should be as frightened as Hibs as we really should. We just need to play our best. I really think Murty needs to get away from having the midfield, especially against Hibs, because the Hibs have got a really strong midfield, and there's no way that just Docherty and Dorrans are going to fill that gap against Hibs, and that's a big. Hibs normally have also got 3 central midfielders, and they really work hard in the midfield. So I think that's, for me, Murty's midfield setup. He's got to change it, otherwise we're just going to keep running against the lamppost.
I think that's a fair criticism, absolutely. But we have to think. Obviously, we get a lot of criticism Murty's been taking over the past few weeks, and the result yesterday's not done a great deal to kind of soothe that for the guy. But Murty's a very inexperienced manager by his own acknowledgement. This is his first big managerial job.
Yeah, but Ross, you can see it, and I can see it, and 49,000 people in the terraces can see it. Why can't Murty see it?
No, absolutely. And the point I'm trying to make is that we brought in Jimmy Nicholl to try and help this guy out, to give a bit of experience and to bring a toughness to the club, to make tough decisions and to go up against Murty, to support him, but also challenge him to do the right thing. So while Graham Murty's taken a lot of flack for not changing anything, for playing the same formation week after week, for not making substitutions till the 75th minute, and when he does, they're often bizarre substitutions to make, do these questions not need to be also thrown at Jimmy Nicholl? Or because he's assistant manager, does he kind of sail under the radar?
Well, obviously, I don't know what the relationship is between Murty and Jimmy Nicholl. The players seem to love Jimmy Nicholl, but I don't know whether he's picking the team or not, or giving advice on what the team should be. So yeah, I can't really answer that. But I can only answer in what I see. And every week, Murty is running into the same problem. Rangers are running into the same problem. And it's just getting overrun in midfield. Kilmarnock done it to us. Motherwell done it to us. Dundee done it to us yesterday for parts of the game. Although I think they end up class of player told against Dundee. We just had better players than they had. It's as simple as that. But if you get any hard-working team with a good midfield and a good defence, and they work really hard, putting in tackles, crunching tackles like Hibs do, because let's face it, we need a referee on our side as well against them, then it is easy just to put a bank of 5 and a bank of 4 and get a result. And that's what teams are doing to us.
I take the point, but I think there has to be some kind of acknowledgement to the degree of injuries that we've suffered this season, particularly in centre midfield, where we've been really, really badly damaged throughout the course of the season, with, in particular, 2 long-term injuries to Graham Dorrans, who's just on his way back, and to Ryan Jack as well. And also we missed Ross McCrory for a good spell there, who'd done a job in midfield. David, thinking about Ryan Jack in particular, how different do you think this season could have panned out if he'd been available all those weeks?
Ryan Jack, in the early part of the season, I thought Ryan Jack stuck out like a sore thumb. He's a decent player, Ryan Jack. I think there's more to come from him. I think I take your point that there's been long-term injuries which have materially affected the season. There's no doubt about that. I think you can embellish that further by saying that had we appointed a manager that was proven, or certainly experienced, the league title challenge may well have been a genuine one, and may well have went into the post-split games. Just to go back to the Dundee game, Dundee for me yesterday, watching the players on display for Dundee, Glenn Kambara in the middle of the park, and Rory Deakin. He was playing at a number 10 kind of role. He would often drop back to mark Kenny Miller. Simon Murray and Safian Musa. All these guys played a reasonable game for Dundee. But it's interesting to know what type of football and what level of football these guys have come from. Glenn Kamara, when he was starting out, he was in Arsenal's books, but they let go by Arsenal without making any first-team appearances. Went to Southend United and Colchester United before Dundee snapped him up. Similarly with Rory Deakin, he started off at Arsenal, got let go, went to Sunderland, made no appearances in the first team, then played with Stevenage and Crawley Town, and then last season he was playing with Sutton United, so that's a non-league team. Safian Musa, he was latterly playing with a team that got relegated out the Bulgarian top flight. So these players stuck out like a sore thumb for me yesterday playing for Dundee. And when you boil it all down, the level of player that's come out against the Rangers team and looking pretty good doesn't have a very high standard, and I think that reflects on Rangers. To get back to what you were saying there about Ross Jack and the absentees, I come back to the formation. I think that for a start, Rangers are limited with the quality of player they've got. I don't think they'd hear too many people that would say, no, these guys are world beaters. Obviously, as a fan, I want them all to do well. I want the manager to do well. I want every single player that pulls a blue shirt on and runs onto the park, I want them to all do well. I'm not willing them to fail by any manner of means. But I think we've got to be realistic here and say that the level of player isn't what Rangers require to go forward. I mean, to embellish my point here, let's say, for instance, that this season had went quite well and we can took the title challenge in the last couple of games of the season. It goes either way, where, on the back of maybe one result, whether it be against Celtic pre-split or Celtic post-split, or maybe even Aberdeen or Hibs, that maybe missed out in the title by, let's say, 4 or 5 points. That could then lull the fans and hopefully not the management into a false sense of security and say that we've arrived. We don't really need to spend that much money to make an impact in Europe without embarrassing ourselves. I think if you looked at it in the cold light of day, some of these players, I would be really, really frightened going into Europe with this squad of players, unless next season, the club management, i.e. the board, get serious about actually investing in the playing squad.
Well, I think that's a fair point, but would you not acknowledge that things, especially since January and the January transfer window, are moving in the right direction on that front? I think the calibre of player that were brought in January, Greg Docherty was spoken about, who possibly not so much this week, but has really impressed in his short time at Rangers so far, even more so Jamie Murphy. And you can kind of see the intention behind a signing like Jason Cummings. Does that not suggest that the board and the club know they need to invest and they need to be spending money? Because the board are going to be just as sick of losing to Celtic and early humiliating European results as the rest of us. I don't see Jamie Murphy's he's a decent player. Graham Dorns is a decent player. Jason Cummings, I think, don't forget, Jason Cummings, whenever he was raving about his performances, he was playing in the First Division. He's not played any football at all in the Premier League. He's went down to Nottingham Forest, and by all accounts couldn't cut it. And that might be a reflection on Mark Warburton's management at Forest. But I don't think you can talk these players up too much. I think that they're a step in the right direction, I'll grant you that. But I still think there's a shortfall in quality. When you say there that there's been a gradual improvement since the turn of the year, that's undoubted. I couldn't argue with that. But you've got to then temper that with saying, well, hold on a minute, we're playing against Partick Thistle. We're playing against Fraserburgh and Ayr United in the Cup. We're playing against Hamilton Accies. So you're playing against the standard of teams that you're coming up against aren't exactly, they're not pulling up any trees, let's be honest. When they came out against teams who were well organised and with a manager that knew how to set a team up, i.e. Kilmarnock, Hibs and Celtic, then they came unstuck. And I think that lays bare what state Rangers are in.
Can I say something, Ross? I've watched now Dorrans in the beginning of the season, and he played last week and he played yesterday, and the whole game he was nearly in a holding midfield role, and I just haven't seen him playing a half decent game in that holding midfield role. Yesterday, when Halliday came on, he get pushed forward, and he was like a different player. He took a grip of the game. And it was a wee bit the same against the Motherwell the game before. When Dorrans get pushed forward, Rangers started to play better in the second half against Motherwell. And then I just wonder, why are we keep making the same mistakes week after week after week? I just don't understand why Murty has not seen this.
Yeah, no, I think very, very valid points. And you can talk about limited team selection and limited options due to injury all you like, but I think February aside, Murty's tenure can be kind of seen and summed up. If you're being kind, you could sum it up as being naive. And if you weren't being kind, you could sum it up as being stubborn and unwilling to change things. And I think it's clear to everyone now that Graham Murty really shouldn't be a long-term answer. And that's not a slight against the guy. I think by all accounts, he's a great guy to talk to, a really nice guy, but we don't need a nice guy at this point. I think we all kind of acknowledge now we need to be getting in someone with experience, with a bit of grit, with a bit of fight in him, someone that's not afraid to change things up. And you just have to hope that the board are on board with that and are aware of how the fans are feeling on that front, because the fans have perhaps been taken for granted before and we don't want it to happen again. The next topic is a real kind of bugbear of mine, something that frustrates me almost every time I see it. And I'm going to caveat this by starting off the chat by saying this is not a dig at any Rangers fan. I would never think myself so highly that I could ever slag off any Rangers fan for how they want to support the team. I think we have, without question, the most loyal, the most passionate supporters, certainly in the country. We must be up there in the whole world. How many clubs across the world can do what we did and drop down to the fourth tier and pack that stadium out week after week after week? The only time that ever dipped was when there was a wee boycott against the owners to get the spivs out. So I think the support of Rangers fans has never been in question. But once again, we were told that the game against Dundee was sold out. And I was watching the game on Rangers TV. I live down here in London, so I was watching the game on TV. And I noticed, I thought it was quite obvious, quite apparent that there were a large number of empty seats. I kind of estimated it at around about 5,000 or 6,000 empty seats, probably from the camera shots that I could see. So if the game's been sold out, Pete, how is it that we've got these empty seats knocking around?
Well, obviously there's so many season tickets sold, and the board or the Rangers they can only count seats that they've sold, and a season ticket's been sold. So they've got to count the bodies. They obviously don't know whether somebody's going to turn up on the day or not turn up on the day. There is a scheme that you can call the club and ask them to sell your ticket, but they can't. They don't know who's going to turn up and who's not going to turn up. And a lot of people, if there's 2 drops of rain, they say, "Oh, I'm not going to go today because it's going to rain." And that's just the way it is. And especially the cold days, then there's a lot of people just think, "Oh, we're playing Dundee today. I think I'll just stay at home." It's unfortunate, but I'm afraid that's the way it is. And I don't think we're the only club that's got that. I think every club's got it.
No, I think you're right, and every club probably does have it. Pete, I know you're like myself. We don't live in Scotland, so you're probably like me in that it seems a little bit alien that if you could get to the game and you wouldn't get to the game, why would you not go? But David, in your opinion, do you think fans are justified in buying a season ticket? Obviously, if you buy a season ticket, go to as many or as few games as you like to. Do you think fans are justified in kind of staying away at this point because of maybe the football that's been on display so far? They're not content with the management system.
Yeah, well, like you, Ross, I'd be loath to criticise any Rangers supporter because of the loyalty that the support at large has displayed, especially season ticket holders. They've kept the club running for the best part of 6 years since administration. So I think that they see a lot in the eyes of a lot of them. I think the season's gone for them. I don't think that they view the remaining games of the season with any real degree of hope. I think that's a lot to do with how the team plays, and the stayaways. Pete mentioned there about the secondary ticket scheme. I don't know how much the club rebates you back on a ticket, but that may well have something to do with it. But I think it's yesterday I noticed that the amount of empty seats, so there wasn't any really big banks of empty seats, but they certainly with interspersed with people that were actually sat in their seats, I would estimate the attendance yesterday to be maybe around about 42,000. I would go further than what you reckon. Because where I sit, I can view the main stand. And since I've seen the highlights of the game back, usually the fans that sit in the Govan stand, that tends to be the kind of die-hard stand of the ground, if you like. That followed by the Copeland. But there was lots of empty seats. I can only imagine that the top tier of the Govan, there'd be quite a number of absentees. Can I blame them? No, not at all. I think the standard of football, the fact that the season is largely gone in terms of the league, I think that basically explains it away, Ross, unfortunately.
I think that's fair, but the game was advertised obviously as sold out because you've got all your season ticket seats that have sold, and then there's a limited number of non-season ticket seats that are available for purchase prior to the game. The game was sold out a number of days before the game actually kicked off. So that kind of suggests that there's more demands than we've been able to supply there. David, do you think the club needs to be doing more to kind of push this secondary ticketing thing?
I don't know, Ross. Again, as I say there, I don't know what levels of rebate you get back in your ticket. Where I sit, certainly a couple of seasons ago when it was uppermost in my mind, I think you get something back like a £5 for tickets that may well have been priced round about £18 to £20, and that could have been when we were playing in the First Division. The Premier League, it may well be adjusted to a greater level. But I don't know, Ross. I mean, you're stuck between a rock and a hard place here. As Pete says, the club have obviously got to release figures to the police and the stewarding operation. And I think I'm right in saying that they've got something like 43,000 season ticket holders. So they've got to count them no matter what. And I don't think it's a case of that they're wanting to be underhand with the attendance figures to artificially boost how well received they are, like some other clubs in the country. The secondary ticket stuff, I don't know how manageable that is. The demand for tickets, I mean, I'll be brutally honest here, and I don't think I'm alone here, I'm finding going to Ibrox a bit of a chore these days. It's been like that for quite a while. I don't know what the club can really do, Ross, other than put a team in the park with good, exciting players.
No, a fair point. The other thing that bugs me, and Pete, I'm sure it'll bug you the same. Like I say, we don't live in Scotland, and we kind of come over on a more occasional basis to see the games. So when I go to a game, it would, other than an occasion when if we were sort of really heavily losing, it would never really cross my mind to leave the park before 90 minutes has gone, before the final whistle, especially in a game like yesterday when we're 4-0 up, and actually a lot of fans yesterday will have missed Daniel Candace's goal, and it was actually noticeable that the stands were half empty at that point. So is it just a case of people are trying to beat the traffic and get away before the rush commences? Is that justified as well? People calling the subway loyal, these guys that'll get out of the stadium 5 or 10 minutes early to beat the queue at the subway. Is it justified in doing that especially when the team's put on a good performance that perhaps deserves a bit of applause at the end?
Well, it's there is a logical point to it that if you leave that 10 minutes early, then you're first onto the subway, you're home for probably I go to Kelvin Grove, so I would probably get home before 5 o'clock. Whereas if you wait till the crowd's there, then you're probably talking about 5:30. So there is a logical point to it. I don't like doing it. I certainly don't do it. I come out and I look at the Subway crowd and I think, well, if I go to Partick, then I'm going to go into the pub for a pint. So why don't I just go into Loudon's for a pint? And I go into Loudon's for a pint and I wait till the Subway's clear, and then I go home. But yeah, that obviously costs money. Not everybody's got the money to do that. A lot of them spent their money on the pie and the bridies. Although I would suggest that the pint in the Loudon's is better than the pie and the Bovril at Ibrox. So I can see the point of it, and it's the same if you've got a car. Trying to get away from Ibrox in the car along the Paisley Road West when everybody's leaving at the same time, it is murder. I can understand that, but yeah, I prefer that wee bit of loyalty and giving the players loyalty to the end. And fun enough, I heard a story years ago. And since we're talking, also had about Ray Wilkins, was the 5-1 game against Celtic when we beat them 5-1. I heard that the Green Brigade were at the top of the stairs and telling everybody to get back to their seat. They weren't letting them leave. We're not the only club that does it, and yeah, it's a shame. And I think people should be a wee bit loyal and just stay in their seats, watch the game.
Yeah, that's my thoughts exactly. David, what about you? What are your thoughts on leaving 5 or 10 minutes early to beat the crowd?
I don't. I stay to 90 minutes for my sins, Ross. Again, there's two ways you can look at this. You can either look, the three of us, and say, "No, we should stay at the end. You should clap the guys off for their efforts." I think if all things being equal, if it was a scintillating display of exciting football, if you're watching genuine quality players, I think people would be more inclined to stay right to the very end. I think when you're watching the type of fare that Rangers are currently serving up, and I'm not going overboard and being critical of them. I'm just talking about where we generally are. The fans are long suffering. And a kind of a 4-0 result, which, let's be honest, flatters Rangers yesterday. I think that I couldn't point the finger at people that want to leave early. Having said that, there's been times when I've been sat in the ground when games are in the balance, with maybe 10 minutes to go, where we're either, maybe a goal up and hanging on with our fingernails, given how ropey we are at the back, or we're maybe going to try and get an equaliser, going to try and get a winner, and you see streams of people that are leaving. And in times gone past, I would have labelled them glory hunters and fans that come along with David Murray and the like. But I stay to the end, and rightly or wrongly, I feel it's my duty to stay at the end. And if players have played well and have tried their hardest, then I want to clap them. I want to see what happens at the end of the game, because sometimes there's maybe a bit of contentious goings on during the game with maybe refereeing decisions, and you want to see whether hypothetically whether the manager comes onto the park and queries a decision or something, or maybe the captain and senior players maybe ask the officials what went on during that passage of play. But I'm with you and Pete, and I stay for 90 minutes, and I think that's the right thing to do.
Absolutely. And look, again, just to say, this is a topic that hopefully a lot of listeners will have an opinion on. So it'd be great to kind of generate some discussion around this. Obviously, you can log on to the Gersnet forum and let us know your views on that, on if it's right or wrong to stay to the final whistle, if you can justify leaving 10 minutes early, should you do so. And look, just to say again, this is not me thinking I have a divine right to have a go at any Rangers fan, especially after what we've all been through. We all want the same thing. We're all supporting the same team. This is not me having a go at any Rangers fan or how anyone wants to support the team. It's just me living down in London. I don't get to go to Ibrox every other week. I don't get to sit in that stadium for 90 minutes every other week. So when I'm there, I just want to cherish every single moment of it. Thankfully, I've not been there recently for a really heavy defeat. So that's just the way I see it. And I watched the Arsenal Southampton game on the telly today. And hell, as long as we're not in Arsenal's position, the crowds that they're struggling to get at the minute, then that's fine by me.
Can I just come in that? I was going to make the point. Looking at if you watch Aberdeen against Ross County on a Friday night, if you look at the camera angles, it covers almost 3/4 of the stadium, and there's nobody. You don't see anybody. You hear noise in the background, but you don't see anybody. And I've often wondered, all these empty seats, where were the people that have been sitting there? And I'm sure, see when they dig up Pittodrie, if they go to a new stadium, I'm sure they're going to find fossils there, supporters from years gone by. They've been bored to tears from watching Aberdeen.
No, that's definitely a fair point, and there's a wider conversation to be had about the kind of dying state of affairs in Scottish football, which is being borne out by dismal attendances. And you're right, you watch Aberdeen Ross County, you see pictures of it on the telly or on YouTube after the games and things like that, and it's frankly embarrassing that clubs are kind of struggling to get 1,500, maybe 2,000 fans at a game in the SPL. Right, great stuff, guys.
I know, sorry, Ross, just to come in, this might be pertinent. Another thing to mention, this is Rangers draw their support from all four corners of the British Isles. And a lot of buses, are travelling to the likes of Wick, certainly down to Stranraer to get the ferry across to Northern Ireland, also down south, to England. So I think you've got to factor some of that into it. That fans need to get away, and as Pete rightly says, I mean, if you're travelling away from Ibrox by car or on road, it's one of the worst grounds in Scotland to get away from. So I think that's something that we need to factor into the discussion.
Yeah, absolutely. Hands up, that's a cracking point. I never really thought of that. The guys that have got to head off to catch a bus or a ferry back over to Northern Ireland, or the guys that have got to catch a plane, I think it's a really good point. Right, what we're going to do, we're going to move on, and we're going to look ahead to what is going to be a momentous weekend for us in the Scottish Cup. We're back at Hampden this weekend, Sunday kick-off against Celtic. Now, we've all kind of had a wee discussion, a wee bit of a dig at Graham Murray and his team selection, sometimes his tactics. So, David, we're facing up against Celtic yet again at Hampden on Sunday. Tell us the team you'd pick.
Oh, put me on the spot. Right, off the top of my head, need to go with Wes in goal. Back line of James Tavernier. Bruno Alves. In fact, no. Let me start again. Backline: James Tavernier, Russell Martin on the right hand side, Bruno Alves on the left hand side, Declan John. Assuming that Graham's going to go with his trusted formation, and assuming that Ross McCrory's fit, Ross McCrory would play as a defensive midfielder. I think he may well drop Greg Docherty. So that would be McCrory, Dorrans, Candace on the right hand side, Jamie Murphy. The team basically picks itself. I think Kenny Miller will play, assuming that Josh Windus is injured and unfit, and Alfredo Morelos will be up top. On the bench, I think you'll see Jason Cummins, obviously. I think you'll see Greg Docherty, assuming he doesn't make the starting 11. You may well see Jason Holt and Sean Goss, and you might see Fabio Cardozo and Michael Allen. Is that 7 or 8? What did I say there? And Jack Annick, the goalkeeper. So you can maybe take away Michael Allen out of that. Fabio Cardozo will definitely probably factor in somewhere. Whether that's the team that I would go with, I don't know. I think that's the team that might well start the match.
That's a shame. No place for Lee Hodson then.
I'll crack the jokes.
Pete, any way you can disagree with that?
Well, I personally would go with a 3-5-2 and put in Martin, McCrory in the centre, and then to the left put in Alves, and then I would go with Andy Halliday because he hates Celtic, and he actually played well yesterday. He changed the team when he came on yesterday. So yeah, I think I would definitely. I think the rest is sort of the same. The reason I want to go 3-5-2 is I think our wingers are back. Sorry, they're well. They get well forward, and I think we should give them the chance to get forward. Give them a wee bit extra cover at the back, and I think we should exploit that instead of sort of moaning at Tavernier for not getting back when he's busted a gut to try and get forward.
You mentioned earlier, Pete, that Candeas has been our top assist maker, and I think it's quite widely accepted that Jamie Murphy's done well with assists and goals since he's come in. You're saying you'd drop them for the semi-final?
Well, I've never thought. I would need to work out who was going forward, but I would put Halliday in. Then so you've got the midfield would then be Tavernier, Halliday. Well, I think you've got to have Dorns in there, hopefully going forward. So you would probably leave you with Candeas or Murphy, because I think Kenny Miller's going to play, whether we like it or not. I certainly wouldn't play him. I'd rather have Murphy in. But they probably could. Cardoso, he hasn't played a lot. That's the thing. You would need to if you're going to play him. He's not had a lot of games, so I don't think you could put him into the back three. And then you could move him, instead of Halliday, you could move McCrory up front, or forward, sorry. But it's difficult. It's a difficult one. I certainly wouldn't play Dorrans and Docherty in a two-man midfield. I think that's pretty sure.
Yeah, I think that's a fair point. So David Pete there seems to be kind of advocating a pretty big change of setup, change of style. Do you think a big change is needed to beat Celtic, or do you think Graham Murty has a way of doing it?
Well, the lineup that I gave to you there, Ross, I think that's how Graham Murty will play. There's not really a lot of evidence to suggest that he'll deviate from it. I mean, even going back to when he played at Parkhead between Christmas and New Year and last season, he broadly played the same basic formation. I mean, he tinkered with it when Clint Hill scored and get the 1-1 draw last season. But basically, it was a similar type of setup in the middle of the park. So I think what Pete's saying there, that a 3-5-2, that's a decent shout. How you factor Jamie Murphy and Daniel Candeas into that, I'm not too sure, because I don't think he's going to drop these guys. I don't know where he beats them. I think his chance to upset the apple cart, if you like, and I'd give Brendan Rodgers and the Celtic players something to think about, was obviously a few weeks back, and they didn't take advantage of the situation that they found themselves in. Kenny Miller, he's got a knack of scoring in these games. It could well be his last hurrah in a Rangers jersey, because he's obviously come out after yesterday's game and said that he intends to continue playing next season. Well, that's for Rangers or not, he wants to keep on playing. So I can understand why Pete would say, no, I don't want Kenny Miller playing. But on the flip side of that, his record in Old Firm games speaks for itself. He's got a knack of scoring against Celtic. So I think Rangers are such that you need all players playing in the top of their game. And we need the manager to be in the top of his game. I still think there's a stubborn streak in the guy. I think he's the echoes of Mark Warburton's reign at the club are ringing loud and clear where Graham's concerned, because he seems to be very dogmatic in how he views how the team should be playing, and he doesn't seem to deviate from it. As you have alluded to there, he doesn't seem to want to make any proactive changes in terms of reacting to a situation that's been faced in the park. So it doesn't seem to alter formation. It does with personnel up to a point. Obviously, the substitutions can be tend to be late in the day. Other than he made a substitution earlier on in the second half yesterday. But I struggle to see where he's going to change it, Ross.
No, absolutely. I think that's a fair point. Look, for me, there are ways to beat them. And teams like Hearts have shown how they can be beaten this season. I think it's all about getting the ball down and running at their centre-backs, who tend to panic and are always prone to a howler or two. So I think there's ways of doing it. For me, it's a game I'd love to see. I've spoken about this before on the pods and in the times that we've spoken between ourselves. I'd love to see Morelos and Cummings given a chance together. And I think, if we leave out Kenny Miller, this is a game where Morelos can use his skills with his back to goal, where his hold-up play, I think, at times can be superb, and he does okay at bringing other players into the game. So if we can get Morelos dropping slightly deeper, receiving the ball back to goal and playing Jason Cummings in, Cummings then to run at defence and take a shot, there's a chance there. For me, you could never drop Jamie Murphy or Daniel Candeias, who have been our best two creators. I think, Candeias is his ball into the box, his delivery is usually top class. As seen again yesterday, he played a lovely pass into Morelos for an easy tap in. And I think Jamie Murphy always has there's periods of the games when he can go quiet, but he's always got the potential to kind of pop up out of nowhere with a really lovely goal, like he did against Motherwell. He takes the ball in, cuts in on his right foot, and he's got a really decent finish on him. So I think there's ways of doing it. It's just, we've mentioned before, we need a little bit of luck. We need a referee that doesn't crumble under what's going to be a really tense and spiteful atmosphere. I'm sure they're going to look to be physical and to put it about and to get in the referee's ear early on. So hopefully we can do the same thing. We can kind of match that physicality and rise to the occasion.
You're going to have Brown, Roderick, and the guy that plays for Scotland. I'm hopeless with names. Trying to think tonight. You're going to have the three in the midfield, and they're all runners. So I don't know if keeping two players out wide is the way to go. That's I think we're going to be walking into a trap if we do that, because they're going to have the three in the midfield and they're just going to keep running through us all the time.
And the game at Ibrox there, in the first half, the way Rodgers set up their midfield, sometimes they'd six in the middle of the park, because Tom Rogic was playing as almost like a number 10, kind of almost like a support striking role when they had the ball going forward. And Moussa Dembele, and the amount of times that Tom Rogic picked the ball up in the first half with literally no one anywhere near him. He had 10 yards of space in any direction round about him. If that stuff tends to happen again, allied to the fact that maybe Rangers don't get a quick goal, I think we could be in for a long afternoon, chaps.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think this is a massive game for us, because this is our last chance, certainly, and it's kind of the penultimate game for them where we can stop what's going to, kind of being talked as the double treble. They won the treble last season. They've won the League Cup already this season. They've wrapped up the league early on this season. So this is our last chance, certainly, to stop a double treble, barring the fact that they might get beaten if they get to the final as well. So, David, how significant is that? How significant is it to stop a double treble, which is, it's kind of unprecedented and unheard of, and would certainly be lauded in the Scottish media?
I think it's imperative that we get a result to stop the double treble, because since we've had our problems, they've obviously racked up some records which will always be thrown in our faces. It's imperative we get a result. I just hope that everyone, from the management through the coaching staff to the players, rise to the occasion. Despite what I've said there, that I'm kind of fairly apprehensive about it. I think the boys might do it. Like they've got it all to do. It's going to be a hard game. I hark back to the Cup semi in 2016. We went into that, and despite a lot of people trying to talk up our chances and falsely inflate our chances, the boys put on a good performance that day, albeit you could temper that and say, well, Celtic could have scored two or three goals in the first 20 minutes that day. What you say there, Ross, if we've got a little bit of luck, I lied to everybody being at it and putting on their best performances, and players, the senior players, and I'd look to certainly Russell Martin if he plays, Bruno Alves if he plays. Although yesterday, given the fact that he was on the subs bench, might point to the fact that he might not start. Graham Dorrans, and assuming Kenny Miller is going to be playing from the start, you're looking to these guys, and probably James Tavernier as well, and Jamie Murphy to really get at them and say, right, well, we shot ourselves in the foot in the last league game. We're going to put it right, and we're going to show you that, you know, we're a force to be reckoned with on our day, and we're here and we mean business. And hopefully the fans will get behind the lads and make a raucous atmosphere before the kick-off and during the game, and the boys can respond to that and get a result.
Well, I think the players must have been feeling bitter after the last league game. You know, 2 each when we could have been, you know, a goal or two clear. To then they go down to 10 men, and yet we concede another goal, lose it against 10 men at home. You hope that we have the players that have the right mentality to be playing at Rangers, whereby that will spur them on to react and to have a real reaction, to really go out and play the way that the shirt and the fans deserve. Pete, what about you? What would it mean to stop the double treble?
Well, everything. I mean, I don't like Celtic winning anything. I would even hate them winning the half-time lotto. But no, we've got to stop. Certainly got to stop 10 in a row, or we've got to stop 8 in a row. I'm really worried about this one. I don't think I hope it's I was actually quite confident we were going to win at Ibrox and we get beat. So I hope it's the other way about now, that I'm not confident at all in winning this one, and then hopefully we'll win this one.
Yeah, certainly. Let's hope so. Are you? How will you be tuning into the game? Is it Rangers TV for you this week?
Yeah, it'll be Rangers TV. Yeah.
How about yourself, David?
I don't have a ticket for it, Ross, but I might try and get my hands on one. Touch wood. I'm usually quite lucky when it comes to getting a ticket for Hampden, so I'll put the feelers out, and if need be, I'll stand in street corners to try and get a brief. So hopefully I'll be there to cheer on a win.
Right, well, that just about wraps it up for us here at the Gersnet Podcast this week. What we're going to do to, if this is your first time listening to the Gersnet Podcast, we've got a wee feature that we have, which is called Sevco of the Week. Just a nice wee funny feature to end. So it's where we trawl through Twitter and through social media and find the most obscure or most bizarre reference that one of the many Celtic hordes have managed to make to Sevco. Either of you guys got a Sevco of the Week for us this week?
Well, I haven't really got a Sevco of the week, but looking through I actually seen a post yesterday about James Doran. He was not going to run for the deputy leader's role because he wanted to fight sectarianism, and I thought that was a joke itself. But I went scrolling down to the football as you do, and the paper that it was in. And I seen Scott Brown had asked all the players if they would vote for James Forrest and not him for Player of the Year. And then Brendan Rodgers, he actually was backing Chris Boyd to get it. So I was wondering, they've obviously forgotten about Candeas, who's had the most assists, and he's probably scored more than Forrest as well. And I thought, well, if it's so close to call, then Forrest might win it with a short neck.
No, I think absolutely. There's I think Brendan Rodgers sticking his head out and saying Chris Boyd should be winning Player of the Year. That's it. Wasn't April 1st that you read that, was it?
No, it was yesterday.
David, how about yourself? Have you seen any Celtic fans making an embarrassment of themselves online this week?
Other than whatever they say online, Ross, Kerrydale Fail took a snapshot of Josh Windus's Twitter feed where he posted Rangers and Aki, i.e. Accrington Stanley win today, great day. The Kerrydale Fail's obviously got the screenshot of this and sent it to the SFA, and that he's in contravention of betting rules. So I thought that raised a chortle or five.
No, I mean, it's absolutely classic them of constantly looking to be offended and chasing ambulances. I'm just surprised that one of them knows how to spell SFA. For myself, I've seen an absolute corker from someone on Twitter whose Twitter name is genuinely Bernadette067. So you couldn't make it up sometimes. Bernadette067 has noticed that Rangers Football Club have paid for sponsored tweets. So it's kind of on Twitter. If you're not on Twitter, it's a way that you can pay Twitter to have your tweets appear on timelines of people that don't follow you, so you can kind of promote your material or do some marketing, that kind of thing. Bernadette067 has obviously noticed Rangers tweets have been promoted onto her timeline, and Bernadette has commented, "Why are Sevco being promoted onto my timeline Twitter? They can't pay you for it as they have no money, so is it because you're also Masons?" So Bernadette's obviously into the conspiracy there that Twitter, based out of California, are in the Freemasons. So good for her. Anyway, I think that'll just about wrap it up for us this week. I'd like to say a big thanks to David Fraser and David Tomlinson, aka Pete, for joining me on the podcast this week. And also a huge thank you to our audio engineer, Graham, who's going to make this sound much better than it really was. Obviously, if you've enjoyed the Gersnet podcast, we're available every week. You can download from various places, including iTunes, Acast. You can find us on Google Music. You can look us up on YouTube. And if there's anything that's been said in this podcast that you agree with, that you disagree with, you want to have a go at us, feel free to log on to the Gersnet forum. Just go to gersnet.co.uk, log into the forum and let your thoughts be heard there. You can also find us on social media and let us know what you think. Obviously, we're a new podcast, so please do share the page and let people know. Now, as we mentioned earlier, obviously there's been some really sad news coming from the world of football with the passing of Ray Wilkins, and usually we'd have a wee jingle to end the show. But this week we're going to have our own little tribute as a mark of respect from everyone here at Gersnet. We're going to let Ray Wilkins play us out this week. Thank you very much for listening. We hope you'll all join us again next week on the Gersnet Podcast.
Goff and Butcher have gone up. It's launched in field by Stevens. There's Butcher. Back with Wilkins. Absolutely magnificent from Ray Wilkins.